Here in the UK and at the University of Southampton, we celebrate a whole range of Christmas traditions. Like most international holidays and festivals, these traditions involve celebration, decoration, indulgence, and most importantly, food. Whether that's sending a Christmas card to loved ones, decorating your Christmas tree, or roasting a turkey in the oven, we stick to our traditions religiously. Funny enough, when looking at the history of this holiday, religion plays quite an important role. Christmas, but not as we know it, all began with the birth of Christ, Jesus of Nazareth. It's all in the name Christmas, literally meaning the Mass of Christ. To Christians, the Nativity of Jesus marks the birth of their religion and is annually celebrated and recreated in both churches and schools across the UK during festive season. Essentially, we don't know when Jesus was born, but the date, the 25th of December, was selected, the start of the winter solstice in the Roman calendar. According to the Roman theologian Augustine of Hippo, yep, that was his name, Jesus selected the shortest day of the year for symbolic reasons, so that from this point onwards, the days would only lengthen and brighten. But don't worry if this all seems a bit complicated, because in all honesty, it really is. But don't stress. If you want to find out more about the ancient history of Christmas, or just simply want to show off to your friends and family at the Christmas dinner table, then Hartley Library is the perfect place for you, as it has plenty of books on the subject. But enough about ancient history. You want to know more about the modern traditions we celebrate in the UK at Christmas. So let's talk about that. It may be difficult to imagine, but here in Britain, Christmas as we know it was barely celebrated up until the mid to late 19th century. In fact, many people and corporations didn't even recognise it as a holiday. But that was soon to change with the accession of Queen Victoria, and primarily her marriage to the German-born Prince Albert. Albert was keen on bringing over European traditions to the wider population in Britain. Many credit these two to having brought over the most recognisable aspects of Christmas we see here today. First came the Christmas tree, often pine or made artificially. In 1848, the Illustrated London News published a drawing of the royal family celebrating beside a decorated Christmas tree. And it wasn't long before almost every family in Britain had a tree of their own, bedecked with small gifts, sweets and candles. Funny enough, this legacy of tree decoration leads to 15,000 people needing to visit the emergency room in hospital every year. At least they don't have to decorate a tree this big, eh?
Prince Albert himself does kind of two really important things in relation to Christmas. So the first thing he does is to introduce Christmas trees, which are a German tradition. The second thing that Prince Albert does is he's very involved in the Great Exhibition of 1851. And the Great Exhibition brings across a whole load of ideas from different countries, but also pushes on industrialisation in Britain. And that affects Christmas in a direct way because it allows us to, for example, produce things like Christmas cards and Christmas crackers, and it allows us to have different types of food at Christmas as well. So the Christmas card is developed by a gentleman called Henry Cole, and Henry Cole was very influential at the Great Exhibition of 1851. He's instrumental in a number of kind of key innovations during the Victorian period, including the introduction of the penny postal system, which allows people to send mail very cheaply. It's a great innovation, but Henry Cole kind of wants it to be used more. And at Christmas time, he notices that all of the messages that he's getting from family and friends are starting to kind of build up, and he wants a quick way to respond to these. So he asks a friend of his to create a card. It's just a postcard, and on it is an illustration of Henry and his family, and it's 3 generations, so it's him and his wife, their children, and a couple of grandchildren as well. And that's in a coloured central panel in the middle of the postcard. And either side are 2 black and white illustrations which represent giving to the poor. So it's a kind of twin message of celebration with family and also of charity. And this forms the first Christmas card. So that's where Christmas cards sort of start. Christmas crackers are supposedly, and this is a very kind of, I think this is one of those stories that you need to sort of approach carefully. So the gentleman called Tom Smith, who is a confectioner, so he makes sweets, and he goes on a trip to Paris, and he sees the Paris bonbons, which are basically sugared almonds in little kind of coloured paper wrappers. And he thinks, oh, these are nice, I'll bring these back to England and do something similar. So he creates these and he thinks, well, why not kind of produce them as a sort of Christmas thing and put a little riddle or a little motto inside them. He thinks they're great, but they don't sell very well. And this is in the 1840s, so it's kind of quite early on. So he continues to kind of play around with the idea, and story has it, so it's a kind of legend, that he sits in front of the fire one evening, he sees kind of the logs crackling, and he thinks, oh, I could make my little bonbons more exciting by having a crack when you open up the wrapper. But this is quite an early kind of idea, and it takes him about 10 years. We're pushing kind of towards 1860 before he's worked out how to make it work. But he does kind of create a prototype cracker. So it looks like a kind of, his early crackers look like a large sweet wrapper. So kind of with the central body and then the two pieces at the end. And then running through them is kind of the traditional little paper that when you pull means that you get that lovely kind of crack. So he is traditionally associated with creating the first cracker. Here you go, Luke.
Come on. Both Cole and Smith's inventions profited immensely from the coinciding industrial boom occurring in Britain at the time. Colour printing technology had become more and more advanced, and so these previously luxury items now fell in price and became more affordable to the entire population. After the death of both these inventors, both Christmas cards and crackers evolved and became more elaborate in design. Christmas crackers, for example, were soon filled with paper crowns, symbolising the three wise men, then poems, and eventually jokes and limericks in the 1930s, once the tradition of celebrating Christmas with family and friends was fully established. Suits me, I think. Christmas cards and crackers have become a hugely significant part of the festive season. In fact, in 1880 alone, 11.5 million of these things were sold by the card industry. This, of course, being the first ever card design. From this point onward, the commercialisation of Christmas has grown exponentially. Hang on, just going to post this. The ever-growing commercialisation of Christmas means one thing: buying a whole lot of presents. To Christians, gift-giving at Christmas is symbolic of the tributes paid to baby Jesus during the story of the Nativity, but the tradition actually goes all the way back to the ancient Roman period and the festivals celebrated then in December, such as Saturnalia. Really, the tradition has occurred ever since. And now, of course, we have the gift-giver himself, Santa Claus, who can actually be traced back to Saint Nicholas, a selfless Greek monk born in the 3rd century AD. Throughout the Middle Ages, St. Nicholas was transformed from a protector of church doctrine, orphans and prisoners, to the bearer of gifts. But the Santa Claus you and I know today looks very different to how St. Nicholas would have looked like in the Middle Ages. It was actually the company Coca-Cola who first envisaged Santa Claus in his famous red and white suit, whilst they were drawing sketches for their 1930s advertising campaigns. But the Christmas market isn't all about material items. There's also food and drink too. The history of Christmas cuisine, like the history of Christmas itself, goes back years and years. Our traditional turkey was actually only native to the Americas until the 16th century, before, legend has it, it was first eaten by King Henry VIII on Christmas Day. It didn't become the main preference until the Victorian era, however. But since the turn of the 20th century, our Christmas dinners have included a whole range of different foods, from roast potatoes to stuffing to everyone's favourite, Brussels sprouts. But the scary little green things aren't the only things imported from Europe that we here in the UK love to eat. Recently, the UK has embraced festive cuisines from all around the globe. You'd really struggle to walk through a Christmas market here in Southampton without trying some German beer, pretzels or sausage, having a drink of French mulled wine, or taking a sip of eggnog, a tradition born in the USA. Well, actually England, but you know what I meant. So, no matter how you celebrate the festive season, no matter who you are or where you're from, Christmas has always been a time to spend with loved ones. Merry Christmas from the University of Southampton.